This is the Suicide Elimination Tour, the Bob Reilly Project, Chapter 2. We're going to open it with introducing you to the reason why, to me, prayer was a mandatory first step. So I'm going to introduce you to the beast. And this is a wanted poster. Wanted for murder of 22 Vietnam veterans every day. Name, PTSD, alias aka Pitts, P-I-T-S, a serial killer who preys on military veterans with PTSD. Be on the lookout. I guess that's Bolo. Here's the son of a bitch. And now, to defeat an enemy, you have to know the enemy. You have to name the enemy. Then you have to cage him. And then you can own him. So, my beast, my demon, my Satan, is this picture, disguised, a pit bull with an American flag wrapped around his neck in disguise. Well, if you notice, there's lines. They are bars. I own him. He's in prison. He kills, but he can't be killed. But you can put him in prison for the rest of your life. And he is persistent. He has maximum allowable yearning and resilience to do his grief that he's allowed by our Creator. I just threw that down there. Get that. PTSD owners, untreated. What does that look like? Well, I have some evidence of what mine looked like. Untreated PTSD will lead to broken plaques, broken trophies, broken dreams, broken homes, broken families, broken hearts, broken souls, broken men, broken sisters. Victory of the beast. Reach out now. It's not too late. The first two, broken plaques and trophies. I went into basic training. And they made me a squad leader because I had 1 year ROTC. I didn't volunteer for it. I had 5 trainees in my squad. And the drill instructor said, if you or any of your squad members ever fall back, I'll put this size 14 up your ass. And I believed him because the first day he tried to do that. And it wasn't pretty. So I just went into Mach 1. And then lo and behold, Mr. Bob Reilly became Trainee of the Year of 130 trainees. I was pretty proud of it. And so were my parents, because this is a picture for their local paper in Philadelphia, Mayfair Times. So it was quite important. And you could see there's a nice, beautiful, shiny trophy there. Well, this is what happens. This is what happens to something so special. After 40, 50 years, this is what happens when it's someplace in the garage, buried under storage boxes by me. Didn't care where it was. Family, I don't know. Oh, I guess that's what happens. I served in Vietnam in a unit. I had a special love and brotherhood with those I served with. And I have that same love and brotherhood with those I'm recovering with. And I got a beautiful plaque when I left. And it didn't look like this. It had the logo, Serbi, Fidem, Savabo, Fidem, always faithful. And it had the crest, and it was nice and silver. And so I found this one day in some other, probably paste near the septic tank or something. And that's all before treatment. So that's the kind of direct evidence. But that's the easy. That it's untreated. Your dreams are gone. Your home's going to go. I mean, I lost at least one home. Broken families. My family was broke a couple times. In some ways, I don't think Bob Reilly from Vietnam, Uncle Bob Reilly, will ever be allowed out of the closet. And I get it, because I surely earned it. But maybe a great-great-grandson someday will watch this video too, and say, "Woo, how about that great Uncle Bob?" Maybe I'll be addressed as Uncle Bob instead of Uncle Boob. But the beast will win. It doesn't get better. It only gets worse. But know this about that beast, and I know this from experience. My experience, I'll never tell you what to do. Based on my experience, that beast, that demon, that son of a bitch, that motherfucker is barred from memorials, barred from cemeteries, and barred from churches, and barred from hospitals, and barred from assisted living, and barred from hospices. What to me was the most fundamental, life-changing, destiny and purpose grabbing and feeling of my life that allowed me to LIVE, love again, and live again, and help others, and become probably the person that I always hoped that I would become. I believe I'm becoming. It's still working process. But now I'll be introducing you to the prayers that were the fundamental cornerstones of my recovery. The Suicide Elimination Tour, the Bob Reilly Project, Chapter 2, Prayer. I want to start with something I just run across fairly recently, that there is a patron saint in the Catholic Church for suicide, and her name is Saint Dympna. Dympna, Dympna. And there's her card or picture, and then another picture. And she is patron saint for mental illness, healthcare workers, suicide, martyrs, epilepsy, rape victims, incest victims, and runaways. And why so? Well, she was born in Ireland in the 700s. Her father was a heathenistic pagan, and her mother was a devout Christian. And her mother died very young. And St. Dumpna was 12 years old and looked exactly like her mother. And the knucklehead friends of her father said, why don't you just marry your daughter? It'd be like having your wife back. And he tried to do that. And she was the victim of much sexual and physical abuse until she was able to be hidden away by a priest and took her to another country. But the father did track her down and found them both and beheaded the priest and then gave our patron saint a choice: come home and live with me or die. So she was beheaded as well. And many, many, many prayed to her for what she went through. And then they began asking for favors and for guidance. And she received miracles. And 3 miracles, and she became a saint. She died at the age of 15. And I get my prayer books at a Christian store in Cherry Hill. And it's, maybe it's a half an acre, I'm not sure, inside of all different prayers, prayer books, saints. You just keep spinning them around, and I asked for any prayer card information for St. Dymphna. And the librarian or curator took me to the section. She says, oh my gosh, the word must be spreading because it's the only thing we're out of stock on. But she says, wait a minute, I think I saw her card and her story in another part of the building. Maybe they were misfiled by the early worker. Let's go check. And I have one. And I had found the picture on my own at another time. So, pretty special to have someone that special side by side with us. My daily prayer exercises are twofold: morning prayers and at midnight. And the morning prayers are made up of 2 prayers, one to Father Capodanno and one to St. Bridget, set of called Pieta prayers. So first I'll start with the Pieta prayers because I started those first about 10 years ago while going through some of my father-in-law's things with my wife. I saw what looked like this Pieta prayer book that he always carried and always was reading prayers. And I said, wow, what can I, do you want this, you? She said, no. I said, can I have it? She says, wow, are you going to say my father's prayers? I said, no. I just said, can I have it? I don't know. And I took it. And that was 10 years ago. So this is the way it looked when I received it. And this is the way the prayer book looks now, which I still use. So you can see I said it a few times. The very first day I said the prayers, and it has a certain amount of promises about what might happen when you die. You won't die a sudden death. Jesus and his mother will come and take you to where you earned your spot. There's various souls that are released in your lineage. There's promises that you'll never lose your 5 senses. Now I have 5 senses, but they need human appliances for me to see and for me to hear. So my vocal cords are pretty good. So I have them all so far. That's one of the promises. But they say you have to say these prayers, which are meditations on the wounds of Jesus Christ when he was crucified, 5,476. So I guess if you calculate it out, and you say the 15 prayers times 364, maybe that equals it. And maybe it doesn't. I used to be an accountant, but I'm glad I'm not. But I read them one morning, and I said, wow, it says if you die, it's as if you did complete the whole thing for the year. And you'll be granted all of those special promises. And the first morning I said it, 6 o'clock in the morning on the Benjamin Franklin Bridge, a hubcap was released from a car 4 lanes over and came right at my eyes and got 1 inch from the windshield. And I blinked because I thought it was done. And somehow, that blink, the hubcap ended up and hit my front fender by the tire. So I got to the bridge, turned up to the side, and went out, and that's what I heard anyway. And I looked, I didn't see anything. But I was kind of shaken by it until lunchtime. Lunchtime, I parked in a parking lot and was walking across the street to a Wawa. And I saw a truck coming, a Federal Express truck, coming at a pretty good rate of speed. And he had not put a signal on like he was coming into the parking lot. And he was going so fast, I assumed that he wasn't coming in the parking lot wrongly. And I stepped into the driveway of the parking lot at the same time that he decided to come into the parking lot at 50 miles an hour. The grill came up to my eyeballs and was 1 inch away at 50 miles an hour as I stood flat-footed and glanced up and saw him with biggest eyeballs I've ever seen. And all I can tell you is the next moment I bumped next to a shorter, frail young lady, blondish hair. And he went into the parking lot, bumped up the driveway, and I said, "What happened?" And she says, "Well, I see many miracles." And this was a real doozy. I said, "What?" She says, "Yep, you have something special to do." Oh, I was just going to go get a hoagie. She says, "Me too." So we walked over. Everyone knew her. Kathy. "Hey, Kathy. How you doing, Kathy?" "Yeah, Kathy, Kathy, Kathy. Kathy, Kathy, Kathy." And I just stood next to her. And she says, "Aren't you getting a hoagie?" "Oh, yeah, yeah." So I ordered my hoagie. She got her hoagie and she left. And she had said she worked at the church down the street. I got my hoagie. I couldn't eat it. I got in the car. I went back to work and the boss says, "Bob, what happened to you?" He says, "You are so white. What happened?" And I said, "Well, let me tell you this story." And he said, "Wow, you're shaking." He said, "You want to go home?" I said, "No, no, no. I'll be all right." So I was all white. I was all right. So the next day I go to the church to thank Kathy for whatever it was. You said it was a miracle or like you know miracles. I don't know them, but what happened? What really happened? What happened? What happened? Can you confirm that? So I went to the church. And I found the pastor, and Kathy doesn't work there. There's no Kathy. So is there another church? Not within a half a mile. Oh, I said, oh, well, I'll go back to Wawa, because everybody in Wawa knew Kathy. I go back, there's the same people that made Mike sandwiches every day, same cashiers. And I went in, I said, where does Kathy work? Remember yesterday she was in and everybody knew her, and where does she work? She seemed all happy-go-lucky. There's no Kathy we know of. I said, you're lying. No. So I decided to keep saying that prayer. So I've said that now 365 times 10. A couple months later, my great niece was murdered, and I had a severe flashback because of her age at 12, and I always was fearful when each of my children approached 9 for negative karma for the mistake that I made in Vietnam. And so I got through that, and I believe it was the prayers that lifted me up through that, because I constantly felt and start seeing more light, more sunshine, more possible brightness down the road, and it had me prepared for the protest, the aggressive protest in 2016, where I lost everything, maybe like a soul on one side and knocked off, and it was a Paul. All of a sudden, I had 4 years of relentless, was what it took for me, and still relentless prayer daily in the morning. And that's the Priyata prayer. About the same time, but a little bit later, I was given a prayer card, Father Capodanno. And I said, wow, Father Capodanno. They call him the Grunt Padre, Catholic priest. Staten Island, diocesan priest. And he hated it. He wanted to get out. He had in his mind a chaplain in the military. And it took a long time and a lot of no's. But he was relentless. And he would always go higher and higher until, he was searching for his destiny and his purpose. And so he got in, became a chaplain. And then the Vietnam War was going on, and he volunteered. Well, we like you here, right in Washington. And then he went higher and higher, and then he finally got an assignment to Vietnam. And he was told, never go out in the field, never go on the helicopters and go out on any missions, because you're too important here. And he began to go out to the chopper pad and ask them where they were going, until one day he saw an empty seat and said, well, you mind if I hop aboard, boys? And he was a real affable, chain-smoking Vietnam veteran. And he went on a mission. And he loved it. He couldn't get enough of it. So that's what he did for the rest of his tour. So much so, when he came home, he volunteered to go back. And I went back, he did. And he still, some say he disobeyed orders, but he didn't disobey the orders of his boss. It's probably the same boss, right? that I have. He did what aligned with his destiny and purpose. And one day, he was on a battlefield, and 22 soldiers were dying. And he gave them last rites. And every one of them, he said, God is with us this day. And then he was shot 22 times. And he was put in for a Medal of Honor. And well, there's a magazine article with the Medal of Honor, I believe. I believe that's what it is. I haven't seen any myself, but there he is. And people began, veterans, praying to him. And there was a story, and I don't have it 100% correct, but there was a patient dying of cancer, and within 12 hours of death, and in a prayer circle, and you go around and you pray, and all the family members holding hands, and you say a prayer, and then you do it again, and then depending on how religious somebody might be, their prayer might be grace or something, right? And then someone handed one of them his prayer card and said, oh, maybe, he's a veteran, so maybe pray this card. So everyone, got it and said the prayer and then passed it around. And as the story goes, and I probably fouled it up, but he woke up in the morning. And he said, what you all doing here? And that was sent to Rome. And he has one miracle attributed to him. Right now, he's the only person that ever lived that has a combination of a Medal of Honor and one miracle. Just never happened. There are chaplains that became Medal of Honor winners, yes. I don't know of chaplains that became saints. I don't know of any, but I think he's the only one with a miracle, and two more. He'll be a saint. So they're the prayers. Mostly I pray to him for guidance to the Lord through him for my destiny and purpose. What am I supposed to do today? Give me the energy. Show me the way. And he also, by studying him, taught me, well, there's many obstacles to get in your path, human and infrastructure, that you got to circumvent. You got to go over it, under it, around it, or sometimes your destiny and purpose, fades away maybe. I don't know. So I get a lot of inspiration from him. I've given out of his card 6,000 to 7,000 cards. And I think because of that, I was invited to the 17th anniversary, the exact date that he was determined to be a servant of God, which means not a miracle necessarily. It means he was under review, which he is still, for canonization. And I was given an invite to the 29th Memorial Mass, Washington, D.C., 1,000 people. And I ended up up in the first quadrant. And I went with the singer of my first song, who I said I wrote, Come Home, My Vietnam Vets, Joe Mangold, whose brother died not far from my position. And Joe went and his wife, very devout Catholics, and were just absolutely so thankful to me, for me, when giving out the prayers that benefited me so much, was so easy, and it was so special. And then the nightly prayer is simply, in the course of any day, I interact. As I said, anyone I meet has something I can help them with, and they have something that I need or will help me with my destiny and purpose. So any that I engage with and they hang in for more than a couple minutes, I always get their first name and their face, and I pray for them at midnight. And sometimes it's, 6, 10. Sometimes it's a bit more. Sometimes I can't remember them all. Like one time we had 4 days where we had 30 students from grade school at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Philadelphia, and I remembered a lot of the names, probably remember more of the faces, but I surely didn't remember 30 names or 30 faces. I just remember how special that was, and I prayed for them because I was praying for the future of America. I was praying for the future of the world, and without these prayers for me, that son of a bitch might have had me by now. I can't, I don't know. But they're my prayers. I believe every one of us needs meditation, maybe, some other prayers, some other faith, some other way to get outside yourself and in some way inside your soul. I'm going to say heart, right into your soul. For me, it's when that center mass, when that burns, ain't nobody getting in my way. Nobody. And that's the way I felt at Edison High School. Nobody got in the way. But I admit that the chain link fence was harder than my fist, and harder than my foot, and harder than my shoulder. And I couldn't scale it. I didn't come prepared, and I'm damn glad. They had, maybe they had hard hats and nail guns. I don't know. So I end it with this. The next chapter, where we'll be starting on what the prayer allowed to come up, was love. And the first was love of myself. And then fairly quickly, love of others. And what could I do? And I call those Lous. Lifting others up. And I'm going to give you concrete examples in the next chapter, which is 3, actually in 4, which is love and lifting others up. Thank you very much. God bless you. I love you all. I guess you know by now, maybe I mean it.